Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Volume 2, Number 6 of Construmat's Knowledge and Experience Sharing Series. Our speaker today, Engineer Steve Ejilaye, is a seasoned professional in the mining industry with a remarkable 18-year track record spanning exploration, surface and underground mining, and mineral processing. His expertise extends to developing and implementing safety, health, and environmental management policies. Engineer Laye's rich experience covers several countries and is a certified maintenance and reliability professional, a professional member of GHIE, and holds multiple degrees in his field of study. Today, he'll be sharing unique experiences in his life and his career. Join me as I welcome Engineer Steve Ejilaye to today's session. Engineer, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. And yourself?
I'm well, thank you so much. I don't know if you can see me. I'm trying to work on the video, but I do not see myself.
No, I don't see you at the moment, but I think we could still begin the session whilst you work on that. Yes.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me just try and what is that? All right, good morning again.
Good morning.
Okay, thank you so much. I assume that everyone on the call can hear me okay? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So it's so great to be here today, and thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate it. Um, it's always a pleasure to share experiences and knowledge, and by doing so, we learn from each other. So I am very much appreciative of this opportunity to speak this morning. Also to apologize for my inability to do this in the previous attempts. It's because of, how we all get busy with other things most of the time. Yeah. So today's conversation is, as I have said, is going to be a conversation. Most of you know, I like to tell stories, and so this would not be the usual presentation that you see. This would take a form of a storytelling of a sort, and then after that I share some experiences and nuggets that I have picked along the way, and then I'll leave the floor open for Q&A. If there are things that someone specifically want to know or have my view on, but I do not or did not share during my story. So that's how pretty much it's going to go today. My name is Steve Ejilaye, like you have said, Ajwa. I live in Accra, in the Spintex area, specifically Community 18. I am a husband and the father of 3 children. I work for a company called Endeavor Mining, and so currently I'm speaking to you from Abidjan, where my office is most of the time, and we operate in 3 West African countries, so Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, and Senegal, and I traveled extensively within these 3 countries. So the thing about me is most people know me as Steve Ejilaye today, or Engineer Steve if you wish. But the question is, has this always been the case? And what is it behind the scene that people do not know? And I suppose that is what I'd like to share with you today. And I so much like the topic because my journey has been one of an experience, and it's certainly a road that has been traveled by less people. So that's what I intend to do with you today. Cape Coast, as we all know, is the regional capital of the Central Region. It's a beautiful city, boasts of nice schools. Actually, was the ancient capital, and living in Cape Coast is beautiful, right? If you have ever been there. But just 50 kilometers away from Cape Coast to the north is a very small, tiny village made up of predominantly peasant farmers. It's along the Cape Coast Chifu-Prasu Road. The name of the village is called Kwamuano. So about 40 something years ago, I was born in this village. My father was and is still a farmer and a chainsaw operator, as most of you might have read somewhere. My mother sells gobe, and I think she stopped doing that quite recently, something that has fed us all our years as we were growing up. Um, Houses in Kwamuano are predominantly mud houses, and so you would expect that I was born into one of those houses. The roof was not aluminum or anything that you can think of. It was purely the seat or the raffia that was used to roof it. In Kwamuano, Saturdays were not for games or for extra classes. We were in the farms all weekend helping our parents to farm so we could put food on the table for all of us to eat. My parents had a single room, and this pretty much is what all of us shared. When I was about 6 or so, I went to school, and I didn't go to nursery or KG or anything like that. So I went straight to primary one and then continued until I completed GSS in Kwamuano into 1996, actually. Our school buildings, as you would imagine, were not different from what our houses were. They were all made of mud. We didn't have really good teachers because not many people wanted and accepted to be posted to that community. We made do with what we had, and but the grace of God, by the time I completed in 1996, again, sorry, I made the best grade that it took about 10 or more years for someone to break in that school. Once I was done, I had to go to school. Wasn't really the norm because usually when people finish GSS in Kwamuano, you would either help your parents in the farm or at best you would go and learn a trade, all right? But my father wanted to do something differently, so I had to go to school. And of course, he had been advised that he had a son who possibly had potential. The grade I made actually qualified me to go to any of the good secondary schools in Cape Coast. And actually, when it was time to select secondary schools during our time, I'm so much aware that I was selecting St. Augustine's and Adisadel and the Infants Films of this world. And the headmaster then told me directly that I should just forget about them because I was not going to get them. He thought I wouldn't get the grades, but I made a grade that qualified me for all of these schools. One day, my father came back from Cape Coast and he had a form in his hand and he had gone to buy an admission from the Cape Coast Technical Institute. The idea for him to do that was once I had completed a technical school, I would come out as a tradesman, if you want. And so even if I wasn't going to continue, which of course wasn't his intent, I would come out as a tradesman and be able to do something with my hand and be able to feed myself and not become a burden on him and the rest of the family. So I went to Cape Tech. In my days, technical schools were pretty much seen as a place for the not so smart. And so learning and teaching in that school was not really that serious as you would imagine. But we persevered. I made friends from the mining communities in Takwai and Bogoso and Obuasi and things like that. And I made friends from Accra, where we originally come from. And once we completed Cape Tech in 1999, my class, I think we were about 30 or so, and I was among the very few people who passed. And so before I went home, I made a decision to go tell my father that Cape Tech wasn't just 3 years as he had thought he was. He was actually 5. And so we had been given a break to come home and help our parents for 1 year and go back to school. The reason I did that was if I had told him I was done with Cape Tech, chances that I was going to continue was very slim. And I knew that I really wanted to move far and go further. And to do that meant I had to take extra classes and do what we call Technician Part 1 and Technician Part 2 before I could actually do HND or do any tertiary course. And so I said that to my father. I went to help him in the farm and, of course, in cutting lumber and timber with his chainsaw machine for a year whilst I was trying to make money for myself as well. And so After 1 year, when our results came, I had passed, and so I went on to study on my own most of the time to do technician part 1 and technician part 2. And then after that, I continued at the Cape Coast Polytechnic to do HND, which I completed in 2005. Now, before we completed HND, whilst I was still in Cape Tech, like I have mentioned, I made friends from Takwa and all of those places. And so every evening when we sat and have conversations, these guys will mention all the good things about working in a mine. You know, you get paid well, you get access to food, healthcare, you get food, and you have accommodation, and all the pitch that they could make. You know, so I had decided from Cape Tech, like since 1997, to work in a mine. And so 1998 is when I started actually trying to get access into a mine to do internship. And I went to Golden Star on my own. It was a mine operating in Achiampim. I was not even allowed to go past the mine gate. I was bounced. I tried Bogoso. I went to so many places. It didn't work, you know, but I picked a lesson from that. And so before I completed Cape Coast Polytechnic, in March or April of 2005, I was the president of the Polytechnic Engineers Student Association. And I went to our secretary to say, give me a letter so I could go to a mine and secure a field trip for the people, the students. And so he wrote a letter for me, but truly the intent of me getting the letter was for me to get access to talk to somebody in the mine, because all my previous 7 or so attempts, like the 6 or so years before, had not given me the access to go past a security gate. So I got the letter and I traveled to Achiampim, and at the security gate, I told the security man I had been sent by the principal of the Cape Coast Polytechnic to come and see the HR and have a discussion. And he asked for my ID card. I showed him. He asked for another proof. I showed him everything I had on me, including the letter. And he made a call to the HR, and someone said, yeah, allow him to come in. And so I was escorted by a security man to the office of the HR officer. And this is the first place I had actually started looking for internship in the mine. And like I said, all my previous attempts, I did not even get access to go past the gate. And here I was now being escorted by a security man into the office. So I got to the office, I saw Dorcas, who was the HR officer, and I spoke to her about my intention of trying to get a field trip for our people. That conversation, quite frankly, lasted like 2 minutes. And then I really told her the reasons there to get opportunity to do my national service in the mine. So she looked at me, smiled, and said, look, we usually do not get people to do service if we don't know them. It's more like we give access to people who work here, and especially to people who come from this community. But for this courage that you have exhibited, you know, to do all of this and go past the security gates, and for how you have conducted yourself since you've been in this office, I'm going to tell my boss that you are my cousin and we will try and put you on the list. So right in front of me, she picks the phone and calls her boss, who was in Accra during that time, during negotiation with the union, and spoke to him. And the boss said, why not put him on? And so this was in March or April. And so before national service postings would come out in August or September, I knew that I was going to do my national service in a mine. I had actually received a letter from the mine and sent it to the National Service Secretariat in Accra. So this is how my journey in mining started. I did Golden Star National Service. We were about 13, and by the time we finished in 2006, I was one of the 3 or so people who were actually employed by the mine. And I stayed there for 3 years and moved on to join the mine in Chirano called African Underground Mining Services, where, you know, we started working the underground mine in Chirano. Was there for 3 years and moved on to work with another company, you know, but Longyear Drilling Services, where at this stage I was the asset and maintenance manager for 4 countries in English West Africa, you know, which quite demanded that I traveled a lot. So I did this for 3 years. It was fun, but all the while I was learning as well. After 5 years of working, I decided to go back to school. So that is when I signed up to do top up with KNUST to get a bachelor's degree. And then after that, I did another one with Heriot University in the UK to get an MBA. And quite recently, I have done, as most of you may be aware, with the Colorado School of Mine to get a master's degree in mining engineering as well. So from Boart Longyear, I moved on to join Perseus Mining. And then from there, after 5.5 years, I worked with AngloGold Ashanti, and I moved on again after almost 3 years to start working with this company where I have been in over 2 years. And so specifically, this is how my journey has been. It has been a journey that, if you look at it carefully, like I said, I was not supposed to be here, and it has taken a lot of grace and a lot of grace. My father set me up to go become a tradesman. I put my head into it, and I thought there was more I could do than just to be a tradesman. And so I persevered and pushed further. And this is where we are. So it's been a combination of great and great. A few lessons I have picked on the way that I think I would like to share with you, and then I would leave the half hour of this conversation for Q&A. Is I have always believed that there is a higher being, and so I feel that to move forward in this life or to do something that most people do not do, I think you have to submit to a higher being, and that's what I have. I believe in God, and I am unapologetically Christian. And I mean, if you submit to something that is higher than you, then it makes you humble, and it makes you always, take your steps carefully, because you know that there's always a higher being, and you have that humility to move. Um, I don't think that anything seriously gets achieved by accident. And so the other lesson I have picked really is you have to have the intention to want to change the narrative. Look at it carefully. My grandparents left Accra like many, many years ago as farmers. They first settled in Asamankese to start planting cocoa, and then some of the children grew and wanted to have their own farm, and they moved from Asamankese to a village near Praso, closer to the Pra River, to set up their own farms, and they were also farmers there. And some of their children thought they could get closer, and so they also moved and set up their own farm. And so I am like a fourth generation guy from a family of farmers, and so I was meant to be a farmer if you look at it carefully. But at age 13, I looked at things carefully. I looked at my father's family, his brothers, and everything. And I thought, look, there is no one I can confidently call an uncle that I can go to. And if things have to continue this way, it means this family is going to continue being peasant farmers, if you want, until the generations to come. And so I decided to do something differently. And that is when I actually had a name change. Everyone in the family is called Lomo. So I had actually gone to school first as Ajay Lomo, as the name my father gave me. And in class 4, my mother gave me Stephen Lomo. But when I was 13 or so, I thought this had to change. And so I just woke up one morning, went to my headmaster and told him I had discussed with my father I wanted to change my name. And we did a combination of my own name, which is Ajay, my father's name, which is Lai, and made that my surname, and kept the Lomo as my middle name. And for me, that was the beginning of the revolts against what had become the narrative of that family. And I wanted to, by the grace of God, try and write a new story for myself and for generations that come after me, in that order. So that is where it all started. So point I'm trying to make is that you have to be really intentional to want to change something, and you have to have the desire to want to change the narrative. I have always maintained that people can get into careers and they can get into opportunities by accident, but nobody grows by accident. And so if you want to do something that no one is doing, or you want to to change a course, then you have to be intentional about it and you have to really have the desire. But most importantly, have the action backed by or your desire to ensure that you make some progress. And as I always do, tackle everything you touch with the best of your ability so that regardless of how it ends up, you can confidently look back and say, I did my best. And if you do that, then you live with no regrets whatsoever at all. The third value or the third point I have picked really is to have some values. It will be difficult to really achieve anything sustainable and anything enduring that lasts beyond yourself without values. Companies set guiding behaviors and values to help them and guide the behaviors of the employees to achieve the vision that they have set for themselves. And I think it is true for companies as it sits or as it is for individual lives as well. You really need to have values. And these are the guiding principles that guide you. They are the ones that show you the boundaries that you can cross and you cannot cross. They are the ones that fuel your pursuit for excellence. And if there is no value and you're working, it's like a ship without a captain. Nothing directs you. You touch everything, you do everything, and life without values is extremely difficult and dangerous. Example, one of my values is integrity, and it's something I have lived it all my years. When I was in JSS 2 or 3, we had a new headmaster who liked me so much. And I was the only one who had access to his room. And so every afternoon, he would send me to go to his room and get his plate and go and buy food for him. This was like a daily affair. Initially, when I was going to his room, everything had been arranged and tidy. And then one day I get to his room and there was a massive spread of books everywhere on the floor in his room. There were books everywhere. And you look at it and your first instinct is, oh my gosh, this is a lot of books. This man does not even know how many books he has here. I can take one without him noticing. So I would usually see these books and I would walk in between them wherever space I could place my foot and go grab his plate and wash and go and get his food. I did this for a while and I believe he saw none of the books was. And so the next thing I saw was money in the room. He had money dotted on the books. And again, like I did with the books, I would just go past the money and do what he has sent me to do. So he did this for a while. And when he saw nothing was changing or nothing was being stolen from his room, he stopped. And later in life, I realized he was actually testing to see if I would take any of the things he put in my way or not. In my career, I have had so many instances where people have come to me with inducement based on what I do. I have seen contractors come and some genuinely want to give me gifts, but I would always resist them. People have come trying to bribe me to get jobs, and if you're lucky, you get driven away. Some people were not lucky at the early stage, and they really received severe rejections for doing that. So I think that it is difficult to really achieve excellence or achieve one's goals without proper guiding behaviors and values. And so it's one thing I would recommend to each and everyone on this call that do have values. And like companies do, values do get reviewed or revised. And so as you move and as you keep increasing your expectations in life, you may want to review your values as well, just so that they properly guide you to achieving what you want to achieve for yourself and most importantly for generations that come after you. I have found out that most things get done through relationships. And truly, this is something I have experienced. Quite frankly, if I talk of relationship, I'm not talking of connections or to whom where people would just get jobs because they know someone. I haven't really experienced that as yet. Every job I have worked in is because I saw an advert and I applied, except the first two. The first one through national service, and second one because someone I had worked with took my CV to the company and I was interviewed. Anything after that is that I saw a job and applied. But talk of relationship in our daily lives and in our careers, once you get into a company, you need to grow. And if you take a typical management team, for example, you don't win when you're competing with another department, but you win when you are collaborating with another department. And you usually would collaborate well when you have relationships with people, So having good relationship with people, both in and outside of the work environment, I think goes a long way of ensuring that we achieve the things we want to achieve. And sometimes you can go past all the hassles and get something really done quickly if you have good relationships. An example is, so my family and I, for the last several years, have tried to see Ghana, and so every January we do a road trip and visit a region or visit a district and see how things go there when I'm in town. Now, sometimes friends of mine see the places we sleep in terms of the hotels and the caliber of the places we see. And in most cases, they feel we waste money, all right? But what they don't know is that most of the hotels that we sleep, we actually pay half price or sometimes less than half the price as people would pay because of relationships. So this is just an example, not directly related to career growth, but it's just to let people know how important building relationship is. The third or the fourth one I have learned really is everything is how you sell it, because we are all salesmen, take it or leave it, all right? Which means that we sell through communication. And it's very, very important that we take communication skills seriously. No matter how good you are at your technical domain or technical stuff, you would get a job through an interview, and that comes through communication. You would get a client through a presentation, and that comes through communication. In most cases, people see your potential at meetings and mark you for growth or for promotion through how you communicate. And so communication is extremely important. One of the things that people talk about often, if you look at the post I do on LinkedIn, for example, is the fact that it's always written in plain and simple English. And that is rightly so, because that's a platform where you have so many people, both up and low, you know what I mean? And so people's level of understanding of the English language varied. And you don't want to put things out there for people to know you understand English and you understand big English, but you really want to put things out there in a language clear enough for the average person to understand. I could talk about thermodynamics and everything that has to do with enthalpy and entropy. I could talk about fluid mechanics and talk about flows and pressures and heads and whatever. I can talk of machines and talk of vibrations and talk of cantilever. I can talk of all of that, but how many people would find that meaningful, if you know what I mean? And so you need to communicate and put your thoughts across in a way that people would understand. The mistake we make, especially as technical people, is once we find ourselves in companies or in organizations, every opportunity we get to speak, we want people to know how good we are in our technical domain. And so effectively you confuse everyone around you and people think you are very good. But what you do not realize is that people do not understand what you say. And so they will see you as good, but you don't really make any impact on them. And that is what makes the difference between technical people and business people. When you are in a meeting, especially at management level, everything comes down to the finance, everything comes down to the bottom line. And so how do you speak your technical language in a way that the HR person understands what you're trying to put across and how it impacts people and what they do in HR? The supply chain person understands what you're trying to put across and how it impacts supply chain and how they supply things to the company. And how does everyone in finance and everyone in sustainability and everyone in the organization get to understand this? We fail and we don't do much in this regard as technical people. And so mostly you would see that in a typical organization, you have an accountant or someone who is not an engineer, if you want, as a CEO, and the engineers would usually tend to complain that this is an engineering company. You take mining, for example, this is a mining company, and you need a mining engineer to be the CEO or the MD, but they've gone to bring an accountant. And it's quite simply because people in those technical disciplines do not really understand how they can link and communicate their technical expertise and the impact of what they do on the bottom line of the business. And that's a big gap. And so I think communication is very important. Underpinning that is knowing the three levels of leadership. If you are an individual contributor, you know how to communicate. The moment you start leading teams, you know how to communicate to mobilize the troops. And the moment you start leading organizations, you should know how to communicate to really get the buy-in of your stakeholders, both internally and externally as well, to help you achieve what you like to achieve. The next one I have seen is emotional intelligence. This is a topic that has been described and discussed in so many places. But for me, my simple definition of emotional intelligence is a Fienyan sign. And I always say that there was a Fienyan sign before Diobroni came with the phrase emotional intelligence. Knowing what to say, how to say it, and when to say it to people is extremely important. Being able to put yourself in people's shoes and have empathy and feel what they feel, I think underpins the Fienyansa. If you empathize with people, then you will know how to deal with them. And if people feel that you are there for them and you understand how they feel, then they tend to take you seriously. And for me, that is the beginning of building trust with people that you work with, both in and outside of your organization. Everything in life is a negotiation, is my next point. I have seen people want to live as Osei Kwame Despite, and make all the money and live all the big life that he and his and friends live. But these same people do not want to sell cassettes or sell fufu. I struggle to understand how that is possible. You can't take anything from life without giving anything to life. It is extremely important, and for me, that is the basic principle. And so you want to have more money at work, you get a raise, then do more, add more value. You want to be taken seriously in what you do, then be consistent and don't stop. You want to live big and large, then work hard and make more money. Don't live your life with a disconnect where you want to get something, but you don't want to give anything in return. That is not how it works. Everything in this life is a negotiation. And then unfortunately, most young people these days, and this is difficult for me to say, but most young people these days have that big disconnect where they want to, as they call it, live the soft life, but they don't want to give anything to get that soft life. It's almost impossible to achieve that. And that's what leads to frustration, because what you want to do, you are not getting it because you are not giving life what you have to give to get it. And you begin to feel sad. You are behind in life, and your people are moving, and then mental health start, and people are committing suicide and things like that. So it's one of the things I like to leave you with. Always know that everything in life is a negotiation, both in work, both at home, and in our personal lives as well. And the last one I have seen is no one is going to do anything for you. Effectively, the world and the people in it owe you nothing. You owe it all to yourself to become the best that you want to become. Look, I said earlier, I grew up in a very tiny village. My story should not be where I am sitting today. My father had never, ever in my life asked for my reports to see how his son was doing in school. Quite frankly, when I was in Cape Tech, I would go home from school on vacation and actually walk like 3 or 4 kilometers to the nearest post office to check if my terminal reports were in and I'll get my own terminal report and look at how I performed the previous term to help me do better or to improve the term that was following. You know, this being able to do things for myself is what has helped me to understand that if you sit waiting for other people to come do things for you, then nothing will get done and your life really would not be how you expect it to be. Um, I told you how my father went to buy the form for me to go to People's Technical Institute, and that's pretty much what he did. He bought the form and everything after that, he wasn't even aware of how I got to. By the time I finished doing technician part two was exactly the time that I took everything on myself. And so how I went through HND went through the Polytechnic to get my HND diploma, to be honest, he knows very little about it. How I got a degree, he probably does not even know. How I got the two masters, he has no idea, you know. But if if you sit or if I sat waiting for my father to go get admission or look for admission for me, or if I sat to say I know this politician, so he has to try and find me a job or connect me or fix me somewhere, then nothing honestly would have been achieved. And so it's important to always know that the world owes you nothing. And once you have this, then you have very less expectation from people. By all means, we live in this world with people and things get done through people and relationship, but do your best, start, and someone will see your progress and hold your hand. Don't sit and wait for people. I see a lot of young people these days, you know, even when it comes to internship and things like that, instead of making a move and actually and physically going to places, you will see rants on social media as to why people are not helping them and why or how they are not being given the key, and everyone is telling them about how they started their businesses with one ladle of oil and gari, and suddenly they have a big restaurant and all of that. It's all because people don't want to really do things for themselves. They feel that they have a stake in everything in the world, and so they feel things have to be done for them. As in, you know, I have finished my degree, and so someone has to hold my hand and give me a job, or someone has to give me an internship to do, and if nothing of that sort happens, it means the world is not helping and people are not helping me. I don't think life is really like that. If you get this notion that people are going to be doing things for you, then you get disappointed all the time. But if you believe that you owe it all to yourself, then you own your action, you get driven by your own values, and you put action into whatever you do, so you achieve the best that you can achieve for yourself. So this is lessons I have learned on top of the story that I told, and I think I will leave the next 20 minutes for Q&A, just so that if there are things someone specifically wants to know that I haven't touched on, then we can delve deeper into it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Engineer Lai. Your story truly has been inspiring. And once again, I think I would say thank you for honoring our invitation. This has been a very interesting session, and I've really enjoyed listening to you. Like you said, at this juncture, we'll be opening up the floor to allow for questions. So anyone who has a question for Engineer Lai, you can just raise your hand and we would attend to you. I think to begin with, I would want to find out from you though, and what are some challenges or obstacles that you face while pursuing your goals, and how did you overcome them generally?
I think specifically, I'm not certain in which goal, because I have had so many goals. I have had
Yeah.
educational goals, I have had career goals, I have had family goals and things like that, you know. But look, thing is that nothing in this world is smooth sailing, either in education or in career or in family. Um, like I said, it's all negotiation. You always have to give so you get. And so if you want to achieve anything in this life, or if you set goals to achieve anything in this life, then you have to look at what you need to give for you to achieve those goals. And I think usually it is the giving part that makes it difficult for us, because we feel we want to achieve all the goals that we set for ourselves, but we either don't want to give anything or we don't want to give much. And so then that becomes difficult to achieve what you really set for yourself. But yeah, specifically if you look at marriage, for example, look, I've been married for 17 years. My first son is 16 and he's in high school in Cape Coast. It hasn't been easy being married for 17, if you know what I mean. Like, I have always worked in a mine, so you are not home all the time, as in wake up from your bed and go to work and come back and sleep at your home. You're working from one man's side to another, or in one country or another. And so that emotional challenge of not staying at home with your family is something that you constantly deal with. But you also know that this is the path you have chosen, or you have taken. And so for you to continue in this path and make something meaningful out of it, and make sure the family is living as happily as it possible, then you have to just come to the realization that you give this emotional difficulty in order for you to achieve that sort of lifestyle that you want for yourself and the family. And again, most importantly, to change the narrative for generations that are yet to come. It's same for family life, it's same for career, and it's the same for education, or everything that a person sets for themselves in this world.
Right. Thank you very much. Before we proceed, I think I'd like to say good morning to Mr. David Glendinen. Thank you for joining us this morning. Hope you're doing well. I think my next question would be a follow-up to a comment you passed, that you have achieved quite a lot, and I wanted to find out which of them stands out the most to you, or which of them are would you say are you're proudest of?
So have I achieved quite a lot? I don't think so. I think my best years are ahead of me, to be honest with
Okay.
you. So there's still a lot to do. We have actually just started. But to be very honest with you, if I look at where we are today, the thing that gives me the most joy is the family that we have been able to put together and raise. I was talking to my daughter last night. She actually sent me a message in the afternoon. She is 12. So she used her mother's phone to send me a message to say, Daddy, I like to set up an NGO and I want to see if you support me. So I said, hey, it's a good idea. Let's talk in the evening. And I was talking to her last night about her thoughts and what she wants to do and why she wants to do the things she wanted to do. And I couldn't help but to feel extremely proud of myself. This certainly is not who I am supposed to be. I was supposed to really be in the village at my age and have a farm with a little cassava on the side and a little plantain and a little cocoyam on the side. And yesterday was a Sunday. I probably should have been back from the farm and stretching underneath my mud house. But here I was, from that pit, talking to a 12-year-old who has this ambition to help people, to help deprived communities, and to help make life a bit better for people who do not have the same privilege as he has. I go to see my son in school, and it's all joy, and I see my second son reading his manifesto to be the prefect of his school, and I can't help but to shed tears. These are the things that give me joy, and this is really the story that I wanted to tell one day. Look, career development, career growth, whatever, they all come down to one thing: how do you want to measure your life at the end of it all, right? And truly, once we are all done and gone, not many people will really remember how many companies I have worked with or how many roles I have had. But what will truly remain are the impact we make. And I feel that you don't really, the first place to start making an impact is from your home, and then it goes out to the world. And so my proudest achievement, if you want, is my family. And truly, I'm thankful to God for the partner I got, and I'm very proud of what we have achieved at home. That for me is the proudest. You go home at the end of the day, and so yeah, careers is important, but for me the family comes first.
Okay, all right, that's great to know. All right, Jacqueline, you can go ahead with your question, please.
Okay, good morning, Engineer Steve, and it was nice hearing from you. I've been following you for a while now, and it's interesting to hear it from you, your story. My question is, were there any specific roles or mentors who inspired you or guided you along the way of your career, and how did they impact your journey?
Okay, thanks, and great to speak to all of you. It's unfortunate, my videos are not working for whatever reason. Would have been nice to see everyone and everyone see me, but hopefully my voice makes it. Now, so early in my life, I like to read, and it's not something I just did early in my life. I still do it as of today. And so I began to see things differently. And that is how come I built role models in my head and started to do things differently from your average Kwamwana boy. So every stage of my life, I had role models, people that I have not even seen before. And as you may be aware, the difference between a role model and a mentor is that the mentor is actually somebody you can see and go have a dialogue or have a conversation with. So a role model is someone who is distant and you do not even have a chance or possibly ever in your life to meet that person, but you look at how they live their life and how they do their things, and you model your own life around them. And so I have always had role models depending on where I am, and they have usually just come through reading and listening to audio books or watching videos on YouTube. So specifically, I keep listening to Martin Luther King a lot. I listen to Nelson Mandela, how he went through from a village boy to become I mean, if you could want, savior for South Africa to get independence for them. People like that have inspired me from afar, and if you want, they have been my role models. And if I go to a company, I look at who is really doing well at the top, and I start to look at how they do things, and I start to model my life around them. Because quite frankly, if you want to become the CEO of a mining company, then you don't have to speak or send emails as the drill and blast operator in the pits, if you know what I mean. And so you look at where you really want to go and look at people doing what you want to do and look at how they do their things and try and model your life and how you do your things around them. And then I have had mentors, people I can go to and tell them what I think and seek their opinion. Some of these mentors have come through formal means. When I was at Anglo Gold Ashanti, the company had a program to assign high flyers a mentor. And so I had a mentor who was the vice president for geology. And this is a person I could go to. We had, aside of our regular meetings, I could go to at any point in time to share anything that was bothering me career-wise and sometimes personally for him to share his opinion on. And other mentors have come. They themselves actually identified me, and how it has been built is once a person sees you're doing good, I should say, or they see some potential in you, they begin to take a like and they begin to like you. And so if you see that, then you know that person is willing to pour themselves into you. And I think that is how some of my informal mentorship engagement have started. There are so many people who I call mentors and I go to them and I seek their opinion and their thoughts today, who I have not officially asked them to be my mentors, but you look at the conversation, you look at the relationship, and you know that this person wants to pour themselves into you. So for me, that's how I have seen it. I have had role models, I have had official mentors, and I have had this so many informal mentors that I go to all the time and share my thoughts with. And you have to be careful in trying to pick a mentor, because as they say, sabi sabi, ojimi fonsunyi, and so I have been to places where you ask people, who do you look up to? And they will mention a person and you bite your tongue. This person that you look up to, Charlie, the guy, he did struggle, but they see, just because he sits at a place higher than you doesn't necessarily mean he's doing well. So I think if it's not a mentorship program that has been set up by organization, but you really want to have a mentor on your own, then you have to be careful who advises you. That's very important.
Okay, thank you very much, Engineer Steve. I have another question for you. If you had the opportunity to speak to, let's say, a young professional who, despite their best intentions, has occasionally self-doubt and is unsure what to do at any point, or self-limiting beliefs when it comes to progressing in their career, what would be an advice that you'd give to this person?
The world is very big, and the world has a place for everyone. We've all been at one point or another, or I have been at one point or another in my life, felt like an imposter, and it's normal. Okay, but you have to know that, or come to the realization that you are not here by accident. You are here to do something differently. You are here to play your parts in this world, and so just pick yourself up and keep going. I don't think there's anything else I can say aside of this. If you have that notion, then it builds your confidence. And the only thing we need to really keep going is the confidence that we are actually, I'm trying to find a word, but what we are doing is not meant for someone. We actually capable of doing what we are doing, and we are capable of doing more, and you believe in your own self and your ability. There's a limit to which your self-belief should get to before it begins to look like you're arrogant. So if you have that self-belief in yourself, then I think you can achieve a lot more than you think you can. And it's not because someone made a mistake to put you here. You're not an imposter.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Bertrand, I see your hand is up. You can go ahead with your question, please.
Okay, good morning, Engineer Steve. Please, I would want to ask, how did you find the strength to keep going when others doubted you or didn't support your aspirations? Thank you.
Thank you. The strength is in the future, what I want to achieve. If you listen to my story, I have a background that I have always looked to as a motivation. And I have a bright future that I have always looked at as an inspiration. So I don't want to go back and live in a madhouse. I don't want to go to Kwamwano and send my children to the school I went to. I don't want to go to the farm every day and not have anything to show for it. Okay, I don't want to be like my forefathers. I have a vision of live a good life as best as I can, transform my children so the generation after me would be better than the generation before me. By doing so, we change the narrative. And so these two, inspiration for the future and my background where I don't want to go to, are the driving forces. And so anytime I am slipping, anytime I am losing energy, the question I ask myself is, do you remember where you have come from, and have you forgotten where you want to get to? These are the two things. And so one is pushing me from where I have come from, that I don't want to go again. And the future is pulling me from where I want to get to. And as it is in life, the future, you don't know. The past is gone. You have no control over. What you have is now. And so do what you can today, and cumulatively, you build a future that you think you are so proud of. And once you get to that future, which in most cases, the future never counts because there's always a future, you can sit back and look back and have good memories because you know at every stage of your life, you did your best. So this is what keeps me going, the why I am doing what I'm doing.
Okay, I have one last question for you before we wrap up today's session. It's been very interesting so far. I would like to find out from you. You've mentioned that you've had quite a number of international stints when it comes to your work, and I wanted to find out, have you had any, let's say, cross-cultural experiences that have shaped your approach or influenced your approach to work and even leadership?
Yes, certainly. Look, if there's one thing I'm very, very grateful about, it's that I started my career in mining and I am still working in mining. The mining industry is like the military, to be very honest with you. We plan, we execute, we replan if there's a need be. And quite frankly, I mean, if you've been to mining environment, you know we have titles like mine captains and things like that because it was designed more along the lines of how the military operate. And so my life in the mining industry has always been with people from different cultures. Every single mine or mining company I have worked with, I have had a boss or a colleague or a subordinate who is either an Australian or South African or Canadian or American or British. So this diversity of thoughts and culture has shaped especially my work culture. And if you honestly look at how Australians work, for example, and how we do things in Ghana, you certainly know that there's a big difference. The other guy wants to get things done and want to do it as efficiently as he can, and the other guy in my country just wants to play around it and keep going. So there's always something to do. So those are the things. And of course, you look at life generally, and you take your average Australian miner and average Ghanaian miner, and the difference is that after every break or at the end of every year, the Aussie is going on vacation and living life, whereas your Ghanaian is thinking of the next house he needs to build or the next block he needs to buy. And so that's also another difference. While people want live life and enjoy life and work for life, we are always putting ourselves under so much pressure that we don't even enjoy what you have worked for. These are some of the cultural differences I have seen. But yeah, for me, the big one is the work ethics. Wake up at 4 or 5, depends on which mine site you are. At some point, you are eating breakfast at 5 o'clock or 5:30 because the bus is leaving. Your first meeting is at 6 and you have to be at work before that, and if the bus leaves, it's gone. And so that consistency and that executional skills is one of the biggest I have enjoyed.
Okay, thank you very much, Engineer Eli. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had the privilege of hearing from Engineer Stephen Ejeilai today, who has shared invaluable insights from his career journey in the mining industry, as well as his personal beliefs and life. Let's take these lessons to heart as we navigate our own paths to success. Engineer, thank you very much once again for making the time to join us this morning and for sharing all this knowledge with us. I've taken quite a number of points down. I have 8 here, and one that is going to stick with me is at least to make sure that in everything I touch, everything I do, I am intentional about it. Thank you so much for spending this morning with us. And I wish us all a very good day.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this opportunity and I wish all of you well. It's been nice talking to you all.
Right. Thank you.